Он будет рассказан на 20 минут. После доклада у нас будет время на вопросы. За лучший вопрос у нас предусмотрен приз. Доклад будет на английском.
Sure, thank you. Hi, nice to be here. My name is Stijn. I'm an analytical lead at Google. I work in a region covering CEE, Belarus, Bulgaria, the Baltics in particular. And I focus on gaming and technology clients within the region. So I work with quite a few advertisers actually here sitting in Minsk. My role as analytical lead means that I work on everything related to insights, related to data, lifetime value, analytics. So these are my topics, everything related to numbers and data. That's what I specialize in. And that's also why I'm here today. So I sit on the user acquisition side of Google, so looking at AdWords. But we also help clients to understand their data, tell them what kind of data to look at inside the app, basically to improve their marketing activities with us. And so I'd like to share some insights today on what we do on the topic of lifetime value. This has been a big and trendy topic in 2017 with a lot of interest. So I'd like to share with you a bit more about the concept of lifetime value, how we look at that, what it means for us, because there's a lot of definitions out there. And in the second part of the presentation, I will give you a few thoughts on how we actually put lifetime value to practice. So there's a lot of models out there, historical, predictive, and I will give you one example of how we at Google actually do lifetime value. And hopefully you can use those insights for your own company. A lot of the things I share are publicly available or open source, so you can use them yourself, and hopefully you all learn something. We will have time at the end, a few minutes for Q&A, and there's also a break afterwards, so if you have more individual questions, feel free to ask. So, let's get started. Lifetime value, why do we talk about it in the first place? This is a number which we take, I think, to every single presentation around the world. 70% of users bring 85% of revenue. This, I think, is a number that's fairly well known within the app ecosystem. And if for the game developers out here, I'm sure it's even more extreme. So I'm sure for you, if you have a game and you're doing in-app purchases, you maybe have 2 or 3% of your users that are bringing you practically all close to 100% of the revenue for your game. So for a lot of you, this is not even as extreme as the reality. And this is actually the core reason why lifetime value becomes a big topic. The notion that not all customers are equal, so not all customers bring you the same amount of money, is something that is well known, right? There's different users that bring different amounts of revenue, but that's not something that's actually put into practice in real life. So it's kind of a known notion, but actually very little happens with that statement or with that fact. Just a quick example for the gaming clients here. So let's say you have a lot of users that are not spending much or anything. Maybe they show some ads and they have a lifetime value of roughly $10. This is probably 97-98% of your user base. There's 2 or 3% of your users that actually spend $1,500 over their lifetime. There are your whales, your big spenders, your heavyweights. And generally the conclusions that clients will make is that my ARPU, or my ARPPU, is $75 or $76, basically the average. All the revenue divided by all the users, average revenue per user, and then we're done. This is true, technically, if you look at averages, but actually if you look at users, you would understand that paying $50 for a user is not smart in this case. It's smart for your heavyweights, right, that 2 or 3%, but for the other 97%, you're actually wasting money. And this is why we talk about lifetime value, and we talk about user-level predictions and revenue, and not average or aggregate. So, customer lifetime value, just one definition, and then I promise less teacher mode. The present value of future net cash flow associated with the customer in this case being an individual, one person, not just the average of all your users. Future, meaning the full lifetime, so not 1 week, 1 month, 1 payment, but actually the whole lifetime of your gamer or your app installer or customer. This could be a couple of weeks, a couple of months, it could be literally a lifetime, depending on your business. So, quick example, you're acquiring 2 users, so I'll give examples from a user acquisition point of view, so forgive my bias towards marketing. Let's say you acquire 2 users, one for $9 and one for $19. Which user brings more business or brings more revenue to your business? The answer is you don't know. If you look at it after a month, maybe you will see that both of them bring $10 to your business, and you think, customer A is actually better for my business. So after 1 month, you will say, okay, $9 spent on acquiring, $10 in return, this one's profitable, this one's not. So this one spent $10 but cost you 19, so negative ROI. If you look at it after 3 months, and what I mentioned before, one being a one-off purchase and one being a subscription model, right, you will see after 3 months that actually the whole situation changes. And customer B, after a longer period of time, is actually more ROI positive for your business. So customer B is preferred. Actually, both are nice, because both give you a positive ROI, so you could go after both. The customer B is the kind of client you should be focusing on. This is your potential whale in the long term, just as a practical example. CLV or LTV, so customer lifetime value, is often talked about in a marketing context. Like I mentioned, I do user acquisition, so I give marketing examples. But actually, LTV is a topic that is relevant for all the people or teams within your business. So it's not just a marketing topic. A few examples. So marketing, I will touch on user acquisition and engagement later on. So this is quite logical, but also on the finance side. So if you're just starting with your game and you're looking at LTV and future cash flow of your business, right? This can help you with a cash flow assessment. You can say, okay, I acquired 1,000 or 10,000 installs in January. They will bring me X revenue over the next month. And you can already plan out how much you can spend those months for user acquisition. So cash flow analysis is one. Game design. I think this is probably the least utilized but the most important team to be involved. So your developers, people making your game. You make an update, right? You hope that your retention will improve. You hope you'll get more revenue from the game moving forward. But maybe you have to wait 3 months or 6 months for the data to come in. If you use predictive analytics for this, after a couple of weeks, and you think, okay, we forecast that the revenue will be 20% higher, you don't have to wait half a year to assess the effectiveness of your update. So all teams should be involved. If you're in marketing and you're looking to get involved with LTV, involve everyone in your company. It's much easier if everyone is engaged on this kind of project, and everyone is on board. How can you use it on a marketing point of view? So back to marketing. If you know the user value, right? So you can make your segmentation, you have your top users, maybe you do it in quartiles, your top 25%, next 25, all the way to your lowest value users. You can do different actions or perform different tasks with these users, and you can tailor your messaging to these different segments. And this is actually what we talk about to a lot of our customers. So obviously your top value clients, your top 3 or 4%, your whales, these are the guys you like, you want to nurture them, you want to make sure they never leave, right? And you want to find more people like them. So from a marketing point of view, whether it's your lookalike targeting or finding their demographic and their location, these are the kind of users you want to acquire more of. That doesn't mean that the other 97% are completely worthless, right? They can still bring you money to your business. You can try and upsell, you can engage them more. Maybe they're inactive, so they used to spend and haven't spent anymore. You can try and re-engage them through push notifications, through re-engagement marketing. There are different options. And then there are those that are likely to churn. Maybe you can give them a discount. You can try and make non-payers first-time buyers through a promotion, for example. So you can tailor your experience for these different users and get as many high-value customers as possible within that range. And segmenting and understanding the different values of different users is actually the critical first step in order to do that effectively. One snapshot for the marketings or the aspiring marketeers. So we work with a lot of very big clients that are very advanced, and then we're also obviously trying to help smaller advertisers to grow and then scale up. So clients are generally in around the spectrum, so from CPC marketing to CPI to ROAS to customer lifetime value. You can be anywhere, and everyone's slowly moving to the right side of the screen, essentially, step by step. I think the vast majority of clients that we work with currently sit here, around ROAS or even or in the CPI stage, which means that they maybe know the average revenue of their user, and hence they say, okay, I see my ARPU is $1.5 on average, hence we can spend $1 on user acquisition, for example, on average. So what we're trying to do now is move these clients towards a more ROAS approach. For example, within 1 month, we're trying to recover 30% of our investment. And the long-term vision is basically to say, let's optimize towards lifetime value. So user acquisition campaigns that actually target the high LTV users inside marketing platforms. The big picture, and this goes actually for all 4, the end goal is always profitability. So when we talk about lifetime value, we're talking about increasing revenue, so finding more whales. And we're talking about saving costs, which is basically dropping and no longer targeting the users that are not profitable for your business. So profitability is always the core objective here. One slide that I wanted to show you. So I know the vast majority here is game app developers, but this is actually for all different app industries. A lot of effort goes into understanding who your top users are, right? And this goes back to demographics, it goes to where they're from, what device they're on, is it iOS, is it Android? But another way to look at lifetime value and high-value users is what do they do inside the game. So you have a path from install all the way to purchase, right, or to seeing a lot of ads, and players reach a level in between, do a certain action. Finding these actions that all the whales do or perform is something you can also use for user acquisition. So if you realize, for example, that a user will only spend after finishing your virtual currency inside the game, triggering or finding that event and seeing, okay, what is actually the lifetime value of a user performing this event is another way to look at it. So a lot of the clients we work with are currently looking at or identifying these events inside their games and figuring out what event is a good predictor of a current or future whale. Moving to practice. So lifetime value as a concept is quite known. How do you actually deal with that, or how do you actually put that to use? There are, well, dozens of methods out there how to do lifetime value. There's three main buckets. There's historical or average LTV or cohorts. There's simple predictive models, and there's advanced predictive models. The vast majority of clients that we talk to sit in this red bucket, so historical averages. So they collect data over time, maybe for half a year. They will look at, okay, what was the ARPU over this period, how did it develop, and they will basically draw a historic line or trend. That's one way. There's nothing wrong with that. It's better to look at historic value than not look at value at all, so not a problem. The big shift we see is towards simple predictive models. So it's one thing to wait for 6 months, and it's another thing to predict and move into the future. So if you have this historic data, you can also forecast your current user base. So if you see historically, clients will move from 10% ROI in month 1 to 100% in month 6, you can also forecast your current user base to do the same. And then the final model is advanced predictive. This is the most advanced models out there. User level prediction, using advanced code, quite a bit of computing power, and they need a data analyst basically to make it work. And this is where we see the biggest players are moving right now. So they are moving or trying to move into the green bucket as we speak. One research I want to show you. So at Google, we're also looking at lifetime value and what is actually the best method for our clients to use. One model that we're currently internally using is buy till you die models. It's actually academically based, so it's not, Google didn't come up with this. It's based on 20 years of published research. I can highly recommend you this book if you're interested in lifetime value. So Peter Fader's work on customer centricity is basically the academic foundation of all the lifetime value work that we do at Google. So we're working closely with the guys from Wharton Business School on trying to get this to work. Why are we using academic models? Well, there's actually research backing it, and we have the data to actually test it, which is a nice combination. And it's also quite easy. So there's a lot of models out there that require 20 inputs, 30 inputs, and it's a lot of work. Buy till you die models actually just require 3 inputs. It's a recency frequency monetary value model, an RFM model. Very academic, but essentially it means that you need to know who your users are, so you need a user ID, you need to know when they spend and how much they spend. That's basically all you have to know. So it's historic sales data. So it looks something like this. These are the 3 inputs, and the model will do the rest. So it will look at the user, how often they buy, are they accelerating, decelerating, how much are they spending on average, and it will forecast into the future actually how much they will spend over the next 3 months, 6 months, a period that you define. One example that I wanted to give you, this is directly from the book, which I found interesting. Let's say you have 2 customers, customer A and customer B, and this is the axis is when they have spent historically over time. So we're currently in week 38, we're halfway through this model, and this is the paying pattern. Research shows that on average, customer A will be more valuable after 78 weeks than customer B. And this to me is surprising because of course there's 3 times more purchases historically for customer B. However, customer B is slowing down, so there's a decrease in frequency, and customer A is increasing. Obviously the average order value is not shown here, so you don't know how much they spent. But this is basically how the model works. So it looks at these trends of frequency of buying, and then tries to forecast that into the future. So you get a probability of a user spending more with you after the red line is good. What does that look like in practice? Just one quick example, and to link it back to my earlier theoretical slide of how you treat different segments. So you have a customer, you make a customer level prediction, a probability that they will still be a customer with you, and how much they're likely to spend. So predicted lifetime value over the time period you define, for example, the full year. And then you apply the same which I mentioned in theory, which is you look for your top users, $1,400, who doesn't want that? So you acquire more of those. You look at someone who spends a lot, $85 per purchase, but doesn't buy very frequently, and you try to upsell and sell this person more. And then you have someone who's likely to churn, so 28% chance this person will not remain a customer, and you give this person a reason to stay, so you try to engage this user. A model like this, Buy Till You Die, is available on GitHub, so if you look for Buy Till You Die Python package, you get the full source code to actually run this kind of model at your business. So this is actually a model we discussed with the largest advertisers out there, but it's available for everyone to use, so it's not so. It's not closed off, it's available for everyone. Let's see, so segmentation. So let's say you run a user level model, right? So you have 10 million installs, 2 million installs, and you look at the user level prediction. It's hard to act on a user level every single time. So you can send push notifications, but from a marketing point of view, you probably want to segment and see what does my top 10% or my top 20% of users have in common. So do they have the same demographic, are they from the same location, are they from the same device? what actions did they complete? So linking back to my action slide, did they all spend their virtual currency? Did they reach level 10? So you can try and find signals and use these signals to use in your marketing efforts. So this is the first step. It's predicting and then segmenting your users so you can action on this data. Final slide to wrap up and to finish my race through this slide deck. The plan. So this is generally what we discuss with clients and what we recommend that they do step by step. The first thing you try and do is you do a customer value assessment. So you predict on a user level, whether it's through historic, simple predictive, or advanced predictive, the lifetime value of your users. So you try and predict in the future how much bring. You group them into buckets. For example, your top 10%, next 10%, right? You segment them into different user bases. You customize your content. So you target these people differently, whether it's through promotions, upsell, or user acquisition. And then on the high value side, so your top 10%, you look at the characteristics of those users and then you try and find more people like that for your business. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a really hot speech. So any questions? Вопросы? Come on. Okay.
I'm around afterwards if it's about your specific business, so don't worry.
Yes.
Hello. Does it this theory related to common business or game especially, or game development?
Good question. So it works for all businesses. So this presentation was tailored for app developers, but we have these conversations with all businesses, including non-app. So if you're a retailer, if you are Zalando, if you're Amazon, it's equally relevant. So lifetime value is not specific to gaming, it's not specific to apps, it's for all businesses.
That's why I asked this question, because in game we are designing user difficulties through levels and common user experience in game, and we are planning how user will spend. For example, we are designing that user will spend in first sessions, and then later he will spend make purchases a bit rare. So this theory not quite related to games because it's highly depends on the game design.
Yeah. So the model, so there's different ways. So there's things like subscription businesses where this is not relevant at all, right? Because the model depends on sporadic purchases. So it depends on the user choosing to pay inside the app or on the website whenever they feel like it. So think of a retail customer, you can buy shoes at any point in time. It's not a monthly recurring payment. So the model depends on this kind of sporadic behavior. That's why it looks at the recency data, for example, how often does a user buy. So if you fix that to a certain extent, it's obviously more controlled for your business, but it's less useful for the model. So then you basically make your own model and you decide for the user, you will pay at point X, Y, Z, whereas the model assumes that a user can buy at any point in time. I'm not saying one is better than the other, just saying the model is specifically made for basically on the gaming side, in-app purchases, for example, where a user can buy at any given time when he or she feels like it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Slava, and I'm interested just in your opinion. I have a question about psychological part of this. I don't know if you have ever faced with that. Just your opinion. For example, I have a game and I have to choose between two virtual currencies. What is better? To take currencies such a low amount of diamonds? For example, 3 diamonds cost $5, or 10,000 coins cost the same $5. What is better to choose? Does it make sense?
I have no strong opinion on this.
Okay.
So I've seen we have clients with both. So there's clients where it's $4.99 for whatever 20,000 in-game currency, and where it's $4.99 for 5. I probably wouldn't do 1 for 1 personally, out of my personal opinion. But maybe 10,000 is also a little bit extreme. So it's something, if you can test it. But yeah, I would just look at competitors and look at how they do it.
I advise you to run an A/B test,
Yeah,
for example.
exactly.
It's the best way. Any more questions?
Yes, I was wondering what is kind of like the minimum days you needed in order for the kind of by models before you have some confidence behind the projections?
That's a great question.
Right.
It depends a lot, which is probably the expected answer. For games, what we found is that actually shorter models tend to work better. So it depends on the lifetime value of your game, right? If a user is not going to stick with the game longer than 3 months realistically, you can only give 1 or 2 weeks of data to the model for it to run. If you're a retail customer with a lifetime value of 5 or 10 years, then you can give it a full year of data. It depends a lot. You can test it. The model runs itself and validates itself and gives you an error rate. So you always get this confidence interval automatically. So it's basically trial and error. I think so far for me, with gaming clients, anywhere between a week and 3 months of input data is what has worked. So it depends a lot by the game.
So because like on games, you can actually have multiple purchases per day. So what kind of granularity do you actually set in terms of like entering like how many transactions?
Yeah,
per...
the model automatically runs on daily basis.
Okay, on daily basis.
Yeah, so it takes 1 per day. So if you have 2 purchases per day, I guess they would aggregate into 1.
You would aggregate. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. You could probably customize it, but the model, how it is available open source, is on a daily basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And what is the minimum amount of audience for the system to work?
I've got it to work with 5,000 users.
5,000,
That's
okay.
yeah. I think the recommendation is maybe 50,000 even, but just run it for your business. If the trend is the same for everyone, it requires less data. If the trend is all over the place,
There are a lot of indie developers here for
Yeah.
so okay.
So 5,000, I hope that's
5,000.
feasible. Yeah, pairs. Yeah, because the model runs on pairs.
If you measure pairs, so you need 5,000 pairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any time for one more question? Okay.
Hi, can you tell me something about churn rate prediction, how it's calculated in your model?
Churn rate prediction. It's completely based on the recency and frequency data. So the slide here. So the slowdown pattern, basically. So it looks over time at the data you feed it and how users decline. So what is the pattern, and then tries to find a pattern that works on average for all these users. So it's actually the data you give it, the 3 simple columns, the sales input data, the date that you give it, that's what you use to calculate recency and churn rate. So far, so you get an output, a number, right? I show you this, so you get a predicted value. The model also gives you a predicted churn rate slide, or the expected number of transactions that are going to come in over the next 6 months that you predict. So it actually gives you a curve that the model forecasts, and you can compare it with your actual churn data to see how accurate is it. Yeah. Sorry?
So thank you, Stan.
Good.
So we need to choose one, for example, one best question made from the audience, and we will give him a prize.
Best question?
Yes.
We'll give it here. To data significance. Thank you.
So applause.